What's happening, friends? Welcome back to the Bankrupt Hippo YouTube channel. You're watching Women's Soccer World episode 35. Let's get into what we got going on for today. So, for this particular episode, we're going to talk about three main things. We're going to be talking about the USA versus Mexico game 1 of the Olympic send-off series, and it was a soaker, let me tell you. We're also going to talk a little bit about the documentary that just came out about the USWNT national team and their fight for equal pay, which is titled LFG, stands for Let's Fucking Go. And then also we're going to talk about Olivia Moultrie and her new contract with the Portland Thorns and what it all means. So, without further ado, let's start off with the USA versus Mexico game that took place on July 1st. So, as I said before, this game was quite the soaker. It pretty much poured down in East Hartford, Connecticut for the entirety of the game. At halftime, at full time, all the players were soaked, and I give them mad props for playing as well as they did despite those terrible conditions. So, how did the game turn out? Scoreline ended in a victory for the United States, winning by a scoreline of 4 to Mexico's 0. Who all scored? To start the scoring, Sam Mewis got an assist from her sister Christy and scored, I'd say, in the 20th something minute. I can't remember off the top of my head. Then Kristen Press followed that up not too long after. Fast forward to the second half. Tobin Heath gets subbed on, then about 10 seconds later scores a goal from about 20 to 30 yards out. It was a pretty long distance shot. Hits off the post, goes in, and everybody in their right mind was screaming for joy. Then lastly, Kristen Press ended the scoring off of a cross from Tierna Davidson. And that pretty much was all she wrote for the game. So, in this particular game, who all started? So, starting in goal was Alyssa Nair. Then in defense, we had Kelly O'Hara, Becky Sauerbrunn, Abby Dahlkemper, and Crystal Dunn. In the midfield, we had Lindsay Horan starting once more in the 6th spot for an injured Julie Ertz. Not sure how significant her injury still is or not. Haven't heard much on that. But then in the midfield, continuing, we had Christy Mewis and Sam Mewis playing alongside each other in central midfield. Then getting to the forward line, we had Megan Rapinoe on the left wing, Alex Morgan up top, and then Kristen Press on the right wing, who has been just involved in, seems like, every single game for the last forever. And this game just continued that streak further and further. So, those were all the starters who came in on as a sub. Adriana Franch was subbed on at halftime for Alyssa Nair. I'm sure it's probably just to give her more minutes. I don't think Alyssa Nair was injured or anything. I believe Allie Wagner mentioned at some point in the game that this was only Adriana Franch's 5th cap, and since she hasn't played with the U.S. in a really long time, it was probably really beneficial to get her some minutes in, and I thought she did a really excellent job. We also had Emily Sonnet along with Tobin Heath get subbed on a little bit later into the second half, and then to finish off the subs, we have Katarina Macario and Carly Lloyd. So, a lot of subs made, a lot of changes made, and another USWNT national team game under our belts, and it was an absolute ton of fun to watch. What were my overall thoughts and impressions for the game? This game, I think, was a lot more competitive than what the scoreline suggested, and like I've said before, and I'll say it again, that's just the sign of a good team, where sometimes your opponent can be on their game, sometimes you might not be playing well. I think in this case, it was a case of Mexico actually playing pretty well in the first half, but the U.S. just overcomes that and scores 4 goals, and they did so in quite a stellar fashion as well. They had a lot of really great long balls today, especially from Abby Dahlkemper and Lindsay Horan. A lot of great service into the box from the outside backs, Tierna Davidson, Kelly O'Hara. Abby Dahlkemper had a few great crosses as well. A lot of great service from outside areas into the center of the box to help the forwards and even midfielders get some goals across the board. So, really, really exciting stuff. I feel really bad, actually, for Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe because they were both one post shy away from scoring in this game, and it's heartbreaking. But this game could have been 6-0, which is unfathomable to think about given the circumstances. But yeah, the U.S., I think, overall played a really great game and just continued the trajectory going up. Who really stood out for me in this particular game? I'm going to say that Lindsay Horan stood out to me in this particular one. She has been put into the 6th spot. She's more of a central defensive midfield position. I normally think and consider Lindsay Horan to be a central attacking midfielder. So to see her transition from from an offensive role to a defensive role and play as well as she has been, it's been really impressive, and it's been a ton of fun to watch for me as well because of the fact that it just shows how versatile she is. And she played defense really, really well this game too. And in fact, I think that was probably the stronger part of her game for this one was her defensive skills, her ability to sort of be there even when her opponents don't think she's there, make tackles when you least expect it. She really did it all this game, and I got my hats off to her because she played really, really well. Another thing that stood out to me in this particular one, Abby Dahlkemper stood out to me as a player today. I think every long ball she had was just absolute gold. I distinctly remember, I forget what minute it was, but she had this long ball where she just looked up, saw Megan Rapinoe, launched it across field, and it literally it was perfect. I don't even think Megan Rapinoe had to move, or even better, I think she caught her mid-stride, which was absolutely fantastic. I think it led to a chance, too. I think this is the chance where Alex Morgan ended up hitting it off the post, which really sucks for Alex because I was really excited and was hoping that she was going to score in this game. But next game, she's got it in lock for sure. So I would say what were the not so great highlights for the team today. I think corners again this game continue to just be not wasteful, but they just continue to not be stellar on corners. It seems like every corner they had, and they usually have corners up in the double digits, just none of them really stand or shine, and they don't score a ton off of them. So, I mean, the one thing I noticed is they didn't do any short corners this game, at least from what I remember. All of them were just directly into the box. So, I think they're trying. I think they're mixing it up, and it'll come. It'll just take a little bit of time as time goes on. For me, another big headline in this game was the fact that Tobin Heath gets subbed on and plays for the U.S. for the first time since December. We haven't seen Tobin Heath play with the United States since the Netherlands friendly, which that seems like forever ago. It's insane to think about that was December. My head actually hurts just thinking about it, but nevertheless, she comes on, she gets subbed in for Megan Rapinoe, and I think the 73rd minute, it's the first time we've seen her in forever. She's sporting the number 7 jersey, which is perfect for her. And she just gets this ball from Alex Morgan, which is a great pass. She takes a couple dribbles, sees the keeper out, launches it, hits the post, and it goes in. And it's just such a great moment for a caliber player like Tobin Heath, who's been battling injury for pretty much, it seems like forever. I think it's been the last 6-7 months she's been battling injury. So I'm really excited and happy to see that she's apparently game ready and all good to go and has recovered from her injuries and playing well. So, and she had a couple of great moments with Katerina Macario as well on that right wing. Just the combination between the two of them, I thought was a little bit fun to watch and pretty impressive overall. So I look forward to seeing what Tobin Heath is going to do next overall. And plus, I want to take a moment to not understate Christen Press because, oh my God, she just, every game for the U.S., you can pretty much count on her to play stellar. Has a brace this game. I wouldn't have been surprised if she'd scored a third. And what I really loved about Christen Press was the fact that the last goal that she received the cross from Tierna Davidson, she had this really awesome flick with the outside of her foot that just was like a teardrop over the keeper. If you haven't seen the goal, please do yourself a favor and go watch it, because that was a lovely bit of skill that was so subtle but so effective. And it's like, wow, only players who are on really amazing form can do that, and with really great skill can do that. And Christen Press is definitely one of them, and she's crushing it for the U.S. I think now this makes it 35 of the last 37 games where she's been involved, meaning scored or assisted in a game, and that's just that's unfathomable to think about. That is a lot of games, especially with how many that they play over the course of a year or so. So overall, I think the U.S. played a really great game today. They, by and large, dominated. I think that this was a lot more of a fun game to watch because of how competitive Mexico was, at least in the first half. I think Mexico had a lot more of the ball than usual. I'll have to double check possession stats on that later to confirm. But I think as a fan, for some reason, it's just a lot more fun to watch. And I think it's because Mexico actually put up a pretty good fight for a good portion of the game. So we'll have to stay tuned for what's next. But for all of my fellow U.S. Women's National Team fans, if you guys want to catch the next game, the U.S. is going to be playing one more game before they head off to the Olympics in Tokyo later on this month. You can catch them July 5th when they play against Mexico once more. Can't remember what time and where the game is, but I'll probably put a little picture right here for you guys just so you know where you can find the game. So, ladies and gentlemen, whatever you thought of the game, feel free to comment below and let me know your thoughts. On to the next topic for this podcast. It's going to be talking about the documentary about the U.S. Women's National Team that's come out within the last week called LFG. If you guys are interested in watching it, you can find it on HBOMax if you're curious. They have plans available for as little as $9.99 a month that come with ads. I myself am subscribed to HBOMax because I watch a lot of streaming stuff, and plus they have a crazy library and selection of movies and TV shows. So if you do have to spend $10 and just to watch the U.S. Women's National Team documentary, I say go for it because you can watch a whole bunch of other stuff for the month too. But that's neither here nor there. LFG is essentially, it's short for Let's Fucking Go. They play that pretty early on in the documentary. But basically, this documentary was designed to pretty much outline, or at least to me, it was designed to outline and give a deeper look into the equal pay lawsuit between the United States Women's National Team and U.S. Soccer Federation. For those of you who might not be totally up to speed with this situation, this is essentially a short timeline of all of that, dating all the way back to 2019, about a month before the 2019 Women's World Cup. The United States decided to file, I believe, an equal pay lawsuit, an equal pay claim, or I'm trying to remember what the exact legal jargon for it is, but they filed, I think, an injunction against their employer, which was the United States Soccer Federation, on the basis for not being paid as much as their male counterparts, ergo, they equal pay lawsuit. So basically they go into the Olympics, and the documentary picks off right from when they start their lawsuit. It kind of takes you through a little bit between the moment where they filed the lawsuit up until not too long ago, actually. I think maybe up until 6 months ago, however long it's been since the judge filed his ruling in the lawsuit. So take that for what it's worth. I guess let me back up a little bit. What did I overall think of the documentary? So for me, as a U.S. Women's National Team fan and someone who's interested in the situation, I actually really enjoyed the documentary. I learned a lot from it. I came away with knowledge that I hadn't had prior, and I think that in that, the documentary does accomplish its goal to some point. And if you're a U.S. Women's National Team fan, or even a WOSO fan in general, I think there's enjoyment to be found in this too, because it kind of takes you through the montage of the 2019 World Cup. It takes you through some of the players and more of a deeper look into their lives and how the lawsuits affected them. And it really gives you a greater appreciation for what the players are fighting for, because, oh my God, it's like, one of the things they talk about is the fact that a lot of players had to give a testimony or had to go through a line of questioning at some point throughout this lawsuit. And players like Megan Rapinoe, Kelly O'Hara, Kristen Press, sometimes they'd go and they'd get questioned for 8 hours long. And it's like, wow, literally, can you imagine just sitting in a chair and getting asked questions about a very intense subject for an entire working day? Like, that's insane. It really made me appreciate their fight even more so than I thought I already did, and all the sacrifices they have to make. It was really cool to see the legal team and like their strategy and how they're working throughout this lawsuit as well. I believe, I'm trying to remember, I think his name is Jeffrey Kessler. He's one of the lawyers on the team that was litigating for the U.S. Women's National Team. I don't even know if litigating is the right term, but just he's a lawyer with the team. Anyways, I think he had to question Carlos Cordero for like 10 hours or something like that one day in Miami. And it's like, wow, like I almost knowing nothing about law going into this movie, it was kind of cool to see that side of things. I think if you're a U.S. Women's National Team fan who's not really interested in the law stuff, you'll probably get bored at some points in this documentary. But if you're a U.S. Women's National Team and fan in general, and you're interested in some legal things, you should have no problems with this movie. And plus, I gotta give it to this movie. What did I really like about it overall, besides the fact that I learned something that gained a greater appreciation for the situation? It never really was too complicated to the point where I felt lost. So, for example, like I said, I am not a legal expert. I have friends who work in law, but I myself am not really into legalities of a lot of things. But this movie did a really good job at showing, hey, this is why the U.S. is filing this lawsuit. These are the arguments that we're making to help them. These are the arguments that the U.S. Soccer Federation is making for themselves. Why? What are the numbers like? How much are the U.S. Women's National Team players getting underpaid? What are they actually fighting for? And the one thing that really stood out to me in this movie, just to give you a little bit of perspective as to what I learned, going off of keeping it simple, was the fact that I knew how much less money per rate that the U.S. Women's National Team is getting paid. And I also figured out that the U.S. Women's National Team was actually fighting for really an equal pay rate. And that's just kind of how I interpreted the situation. They're fighting for an equal pay rate. And I think that small little nugget of information really helped me put it into perspective and just made me appreciate, again, the situation a whole lot more. So what I'm saying is there's a lot to like in this movie. I would recommend it to you if you are a U.S. Women's National Team fan, or if you're just kind of interested in some legal stuff within this case in general. I think you'll actually find some enjoyment as well. Does it go deeply into the guts of it? Not really, but it'll give you enough and it'll scratch the surface to that particular interest as well. So but I want to get all sides of this. I want to give you also what I might not have enjoyed about this movie overall either. What I really didn't particularly love about this movie is the fact that it was pretty disjointed. What did I really mean by that? It jumps around quite a bit. You go from the overall grand scheme of the team filing the lawsuit, and then you jump to the World Cup, and it's just kind of montaging through the World Cup, all the players celebrating, having an awesome time. Then it montages to their post World Cup tour, all the TV appearances and whatnot. Then it jumps to different players and their testimonials. Will jump between players. If I haven't lost you yet, it can be be jarring a little bit when it jumps around that much, because you're constantly switching levels from looking at the entire team to looking at a small microcosm of the team to looking at both the entire federation, back to looking back at the team again. Then you go to the legal team, then you go to just the players. It can be very jarring, and it's like, whoa, I gotta take a second to breathe, because it's like a roller coaster going on. And in that particular aspect, it almost feels like the movie doesn't quite know what it wants to be. To me, I came out of it knowing it wants to be a U.S. Women's National Team documentary about the equal pay lawsuit. But at times it kind of teeters more on the side of just being a plain U.S. Women's National Team documentary that's fun to watch, and really makes it, to me, feel disjointed and a little unbalanced. That's just me looking at the movie for what it is. So I will say this, my friends. Overall, if I had to rate the movie, I'd say it was like a 7 out of 10. I thought it was really good. There was a lot to love if you're looking for more perspective on the equal pay lawsuit. There's a lot to love if you're just a U.S. Women's National Team fan looking to learn more about the players, more about their struggles, more about their triumphs, their successes, all that other good stuff. There's stuff in there for you as well. Who's this movie not for? If you're not part of either of those two previous niches or demographics, probably won't really like this movie overall, so just keep that in mind. This movie was very much designed for a not so wide market, but like I said, there's something to learn for everybody, and feel free to give it a watch and let me know what you think of it. So, my friends, what did you think of the movie? Feel free to comment below and let me know your thoughts. Or rather, what did you learn from LFG? Whatever you think, feel free to jump down in the comments and just let me know your thoughts. Alright, so the last thing we're going to be talking about for this Women's Soccer World episode is going to be Olivia Moultrie. For those of you who don't know who Olivia Moultrie is a 15-year-old soccer player who currently just signed a contract with the Portland Thorns. The deal was for 3 years, with an additional option, meaning she could sign for additional years after that. But she's 15 years old. She's really, really young, and it's really exciting to see another young player turn pro, especially one of her caliber and of her talent. But why is this such a big deal? What makes this situation in particular really exciting, especially to make it a main topic for this podcast episode? The fact of the matter is, Olivia Moultrie has been in court or been filing a lawsuit against the NWSL in order to get to this point, in order for her to sign a contract. For those of you who don't know, let me just kind of back this up a little bit. So, the NWSL, it has rules in which players can sign. They have a rule where if you are under the age of 18, you cannot be signed to a pro contract with the National Women's Soccer League. For reasons that I don't quite know, I wasn't there at the meeting when they made these rules, and the NWSL came up and collectively wrote all of these out and whatnot. But anyways, what happened is, at the end of the day, the judge, Karen J. Immergut, she granted a temporary restraining order on the rule itself that doesn't allow minors, players under the age of 18, to sign pro contracts, and she granted that restraining order for 14 days. So basically, Olivia Moultrie, she pretty much, I would say that's a win of the case. She had 2 weeks to sign a pro contract with any NWSL team, and then the rule would go back into effect. So within those 14 days, the Portland Thorns signed her, which makes sense because Olivia Moultrie plays for the Portland Thorns Academy, and everybody went home happy. I'm really, really pumped for Olivia Moultrie. I think that any rule that prohibits talent from coming into leagues and making the league better is a bad rule. And I think for Olivia to break the barrier and get into the league and do something so courageous at such a young age. I think that's a huge win for her, and also the league itself. Like, the league will always benefit from talent, no matter how young or old it is. So good on Olivia Moultrie for that. Now, getting more into the weeds as to why the judge ruled in favor of Olivia Moultrie. I'll probably fumble over some of the details here, so feel free to join the conversation in the comments if you would like. But basically, the judge's reasoning was the fact that NWSL essentially had no reason to keep this rule in effect, because of the fact that all it was doing was it was just hindering Olivia Moultrie's career development, and thereby doing that, it's not really making the NWSL any worse off if they let Olivia Moultrie into the league, right? Like, there is nothing that would happen to the NWSL itself if they let Olivia Moultrie sign a contract. Basically, the NWSL, by just saying, oh, players can't join our league because they're too young, the judge is like, that's not a valid argument. What's the harm in letting younger players that are under the age of 18 come into your league? And they failed to provide a really good argument as to why that might be. One, it was hindering her career development. FIFA rules, because she signed a sponsorship deal with Nike, couldn't join any other foreign league outside of the US, I believe, because of that sponsorship deal. And FIFA has really weird rules with that and younger players. That's a whole other conversation altogether. The point is, only had one professional league that she could join, and it was the NWSL. So basically, the judge was saying, well, the NWSL, you just have this rule just because, and you failed to provide an argument as to why you have that rule, a good argument, and this is the only league that Olivia Moultrie can play in. So by not letting her into your league for no reason, you're only hurting her. So why not just let her play in the league? And that's why the 14-day restraining order was lifted on that particular rule in general. So it was really interesting. Their argument on the basis of age itself, they basically kept saying throughout the case that, oh, this is something that can be renegotiated in the collective bargaining agreement, which is happening soon. But as I've said before, every day that Olivia Moultrie wasn't able to sign a pro contract, it was hurting her career, because it's money that she's losing out on by signing a professional contract. If she could sign today, she could capitalize on her talent today and start making money today. She shouldn't have to wait 6-7 months from now for the collective bargaining agreement to get signed between the NWSL Players Association and the league itself. So this is a big win for Olivia Moultrie, a big win, I think, even for the league in its entirety, and a glimmer of hope for young players everywhere. So be curious to see what you think about the whole situation. Feel free to comment below and let me know. All right, my friends, so this is going to do it for Women's Soccer World. Thank you so much, as always, for stopping by. I appreciate it. Like, comment, and subscribe for more videos and to join in on the fun. This has been the Bankrupt Hippo YouTube channel. I've been Bryce, and until next time, my friends, have a great day.